I've got a new panel for you with a new bunch of people. I've got Living the Dream, how will the metaverse look in 10 years' time? I want to introduce to this stage my lovely Marta, Waydel, good friend. It's full of good friends today. I feel like I'm having a school reunion. I've been talking about school all day long. Hello, Marta, welcome. Lovely to see you. You're going to introduce your panel. I'll probably come back with some Q&A in a little bit.
I hope you enjoy the event at least half as much as I do. I really have a great time here. Yes, first of all, maybe I will introduce myself from the beginning. What am I doing here? Because I'm a fashion industry professional. I've been in fashion for over 20 years now, and I have exposure to fashion shows, photo shoots, production management. But actually, there is a lot of, and I'm concentrating on sustainability, consumer behavior, and innovation. And now you can notice there is so much happening within fashion, especially with COVID, that there was so much problems in fashion industry, and everyone is jumping on game industry. So I've been researching, yes, I've been researching for the past few years how game mechanisms and games can help and facilitate more responsible fashion consumption. And I'm actually making my hands dirty and developing my first game, Portobello, on the subject. You can imagine this as a future of your digital wardrobe, which can have so many possibilities, actually, endless possibilities. And yeah, I believe it will really change the world, and we'll have in Metaverse our virtual wardrobes. But let's see, let's introduce now our panels. Actually, I would prefer that they're going to introduce themselves and explain a little bit more how they are connected, why they are here today, and what can they tell us about the future about Metaverse, because as we just heard, it's still not said what is Metaverse at the moment. So yes, please.
There you go. Okay, great, thank you. Hi, I'm Laura Taranto. I am a director of product at Big Fish Games. Big Fish has been around for a long time. They started initially with platform PC-based hidden object games, and now they're into social casino and also casual titles. It's part of the Aristocrat family. Also now, I think their new name is Pixel United. Product Madness is also part of the portfolio. I've been in games, specifically mobile casual games, for about 10 years. I come from Vuga, King, and Scopely.
Thank you. Hello. My name is Alexis Savchenko. I'm currently working as a CEO at an investment company called Magnifier. Been in industry about 23 years. Previously worked in Epik Games for the last 5 years. And we currently obviously investing in a lot of game development companies. Metaverse seems to be a new hot topic trend, and we are researching the subject from our end and genuinely interested in seeing game developers and the companies who will come up with the new implementations and mechanics in this new format, and looking at it. Yep.
Hi, I am Marie, and I don't know if you were here for the Robbie Young's talk. I was one of them. 4 years ago, I was in the basement on the track called Blockchain Games. And for one conference, there were 9 people in the room. And so it's very, very exciting times for us to be here. I've been in that space for 4 years. And I'm the founder and the CEO of a company called NABIYA. And we are metaverse builders. We make games only on decentralized metaverse. We are a blockchain native company. And we mainly build games on the sandbox. And we also now have some clients. They come with their IPs, and we adapt those to the sandbox.
Hi, I'm Neil. I've worked in the industry for just over 20 years at various different places, including PlayStation, where I was quite involved in things like PlayStation Home and Little Big Planet, which kind of delved a little bit into early metaverse stuff. I now run a games company up in Glasgow. We're part of a group called Blazing Griffin, which is quite an exciting transmedia company. We also make film and TV, and we do virtual production and production for film and TV as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Winston. I work with Epik Prime, and basically we help games work with brands and IP and celebrities, and we also help celebrities and brands get into games and do a metaverse strategy. And we basically help them connect all their NFTs and other virtual items throughout different platforms and metaverses.
Thank you very much. So as you see, we've got amazing panels, just experts here. Really, really thankful. So I've got first question for all of you. Later I will pick and choose a little bit, but first one is, we're working on the printing press of the future, and this metaverse concept gives us the opportunity to create the new universe. We can imagine whatever we want at the moment. So how do you imagine this metaverse in 10 years' time? Where do you see the spaces going? Maybe let's start the same direction.
Oh, okay. So my perspective, I've been working on mostly mobile games. So for me to picture what the metaverse is going to be like in 10 years is quite difficult. And the more I learn about it, the more I realize the definition is actually, I don't think everyone has one definition of what it means to be or to have or to be part of a metaverse. And from a games perspective, and how we would build games for it, it's hard to then picture what games would be built for something that doesn't have a unified definition. So the way I've been kind of thinking about it in my own head is in 10 years' time, or however many years in the future, it would be kind of like a next generation internet. So what would differentiate it between what we have now and what would I guess come to exist would be related around real-time synchronicity, 3D, tons of 3D rendering we don't have today, and then also around like just the volume of connectedness that we can't technically support. I think a lot of it's going to be around social. How do you create experience for players? How do you create the tools for content for developers to use to have their visions of what they want their games to be, and then the tech that they're going to be able to use it on. So I think it's a very broad question that I in my head have been trying to work out. So I think there's parts of it that I'm more confident in than others, and I hope everyone else has a much better answer.
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of we are at the super early stage of discovering this whole thing. And I think that it's very typical that we get stuck into semantic wording and term definition currently at this point. There's a lot of perspectives to look at it. I mean, like one of them is very classy, like everybody knows the story of the Diamond Age and the snow crash, that Neil Stephenson coming up with the term. Mostly because Will Gibson before that came up with a cyberspace, and these two things pretty much synonymous, and that comes from the science fiction. The whole premise, of the science fiction definition is the metaverse to be global. And it's very interesting to hear people start using metaverses in a plural, because that kind of against the original definition. But this is how technology and the perception adapts. And we know that the perception is reality, and it will be what we will form it to be, and nobody knows currently what specifically will the metaverse be. But there is a couple of elements which I think are significant to understand as well. Well, first of all, this is not the first time that we're technologically trying to approach the subject. Started back from the 1994 with the VTML, like in the Cyber City, then examples like the Second Life, and a bunch of other things, and MMO games. And in a sense, every video game is a virtual simulation, and the problematics, of this thing being investigated by multiple people in the world in the philosophical departments and universities. So there is this aspect as well. I think that there is a lot of positive things that may come with it, like outside of gaming and current functional implementations. I think there are a lot of humanitarian potential added value to that, like stuff like getting cultures together, like on a completely different sense. And I'm trying to think about an immersive form of the internet where every nation brings in their museums and universities, and you can freely go to it, like at a time where you can and start discussing stuff with people, which is super cool. From the point of view of gaming experience and entertainment experience, I think that the key definition fact is that you can go immediately to a 3D environment which is super immersive. And I think that the big questions that we don't understand and answer yet, and since this is a 10 years in future, right? I mean, like, is what the actual interface would be. Because in my opinion, VR, AR is something good for now, you know, like, but in 10 years, I'm thinking more of a non-invasive neuro interfaces or maybe invasive neuro interfaces. We don't know at this point. So this is a little bit vague, but this is kind of, you know, how I...
Mary, what's your imagination? How it metaverse look in 10 years?
So I guess that there will be many more metaverses in a few years. Many people are building. And I'm a proponent of decentralized ones because I do believe in the power of interoperability. It's not quite there yet, but we know so many developers working really hard on this. Many people are developing all the bridges, tools, protocols, and it will get there. What we like about the decentralization is open, is interoperable, and the possibilities are infinite. It really amused me yesterday. It was Valentine's Day. I don't know if you have heard on the Decentraland, one of the metaverse. There was a couple who got married. It's the second wedding on the platform, and they had a law firm to prepare a work framework. Yeah, a frame for the prenup, virtual prenup. I think it's quite fun. I think also that there will be many, many more jobs that we can't even think of. I know a guy who's a builder on another metaverse called Crypto Voxels. So he's building. And the landowner, for some reason, wanted to move his whole thing because the location was better. And so there's a new job. You're a mover on the metaverse. What else? Yeah, so there are many job opportunities, and we haven't seen the beginning of it. Yeah, that's and dystopic view for me would be a completely closed and centralized, where you still are the product, like in Web 2. And that would be dystopic. And my fear is that a giant tech with 2 billion users and who knows how to make tools will maybe win the race. We don't think so. That's my fear.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of what everyone said, and I'm kind of running out of things to agree and disagree with at this point. But you know, I come from a games background in console games specifically, which is a very tribal space, and it's a very closed space. And, you know, I worked for a long time in kind of audience broadening, like how do we get more people to buy a PlayStation? You know, how do we get that kind of, that broadened out so other age groups and demographics are kind of willing to step into that space and buy those things? And I think that will always be a big challenge. There's always going to be a large barrier of entry. And much like you were saying, you know, right now people are thinking, okay, it's going to be a VR headset, and that's going to be the thing that kind of gets us into these worlds, and that's what people are planning on. But I think there's a lot more to come, and I think that can't be the limit of it, because it's not a social thing. It's not something that people are ready for. Maybe they will be in 10 years, but, you know, we're doing some work in virtual production right now, which is, you know, the big LED volumes, and we're kind of getting into interesting tech of you know, HoloLens and various things of like world projection and all this kind of stuff. And I really don't think that headsets and kind of that hard technology is the limit of it all. We just need to kind of find out what that is and kind of get to there, but it's going to take a while.
Yeah, I agree. I think 10 years is obviously a very long time, especially in tech. And if art imitates life and life imitates art, we'll probably be somewhere like in the Minority Report, or, you know, Ready Player One or something crazy like that, holograms. But to me, the metaverse will look like, if I have an 8-year-old, and I think education will be a big part of the metaverse, where my son, very smart, but has an attention span of, you know, a hamster. He can study for an hour, but he can play video games for 10 hours. And so I think the metaverse will help education. If the Web 2 is the information superhighway, I can only imagine what the metaverse would be in terms of the real immersive feeling of learning something that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do. Or even entertainment-wise, there's so many different applications, if you will. Like Super Bowl, for instance, was interesting to watch. I'm still kind of jet-lagged from coming from Vancouver, so I was up to watch it. But I think they could have done, it was cool to see a nostalgic band play, but I think they missed the boat on doing something with the metaverse and having kind of like a futuristic take on old IP or old stuff. But there's definitely so many different opportunities. But yeah, 10 years is going to be, feel like a century in tech-wise. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah, for me, the last 2 years, 10 years, it's a long time, but last 2 years were like 2 weeks. It just went so quick. But look how the innovation went through. It's really speed up. And so let's see, it's super interesting. We can, imagine and let's try to build the best possible metaverses. So Laura, you touched a little bit about what about the game developments, but do you see the big shift in design and focus on the metaverse now, even in mobile games? Where are the biggest changes in the game development?
Yes, sorry. So for what I do day to day, nothing's changed for me, right? So I think I've been a part of kind of the larger companies that have dug right into mobile development and that were leading the pack there. As far as I know, I don't see them necessarily, dropping everything and integrating the blockchain into their games, so from that perspective, no. But I do think that, in my mind, the way I kind of view games is someone has a vision and they want to create this interactive, immersive experience. And what they want to picture, what they picture in their head to give to and share with other people is generally limited by what they can build and what technology exists, right? So right now, there's great games and great platforms, but I mean, a lot of them are kind of stuck to specific either developers or tools or platforms by which that they only can do as much as they can do. What I think is interesting about the new technology that the metaverse is going to require that doesn't necessarily exist yet is that all of these companies, they have a little bit of like differentiating visions of what they want to do, but we're going to see all of them kind of going in parallel, trying to create what they think is this metaverse experience for their audiences. So I can't say specifically what I think is going to change because there's little bits of it now. So for example, there are a number of companies that are integrating the blockchain into their specific gaming experience. There's an awesome. I walked into the end of a video showing, and I think it was called Phantom Galaxies, where you have, that looks like an absolutely awesome game, and it's on the blockchain. So you're going to see, I think, smaller developers come in and say, I have this idea, and I think I can use this tech in a way, and then that's how it's mostly going to start. Similarly, I mean, I think that's one way where you have, visions kind of looking for tech to do things. What I'm hoping to see also is kind of like the Fortnite direction, which is, at the moment, they want in their concerts, and full disclosure, I haven't actually attended any of their kind of in-platform concerts. But what they can't do now is if they have 10 million players that want to participate in this concert, they actually have to fake the experience of real-time synchronicity between other people. So because they don't have the tech to handle it yet. But when that tech does exist, or whether they create it or someone else creates it, we're going to be challenged as developers to be able to, one, create things for it, and then there's going to be a group of people that are like, I already thought of this great thing, and now I have the opportunity to do it. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. I can tell you what I'm hoping to see is, and everyone's been saying NFTs, I'm not in NFTs. However, I do think what I like about them is they're going to be challenging overall digital ownership within games. So right now, you buy something in one of the top games, it's not really yours. Like you're licensing a service from this company. And now, you're not going to be able to be a game developer and not address that. So you're going to have to come with another way to think about, okay, so now how do we create a game that allows for actual ownership of a digital good for our players? And it's not how we think. And I think those are the types of questions that game developers will have to answer. And I mean, you can choose to ignore it, obviously, but other companies won't. I mean, I think there are a number of people that are starting new studios that are building on this tech, and I mean they're small now, but they're not always going to be. So So yeah, I think as new technology comes up, the game development as a whole is gonna have to kind of question the way we did things before is probably not going to work. So how do we adapt, and how do we use now what's becoming a player expectation and a player demand?
Just remind myself, the weekend I went to Science Museum and there was my old Ericsson and Nokia already there. So let's see what there will be in 10 years' time. And Neil, I've got a question to you. How do you think Metaverse will affect the way games are played? How will Metaverse change the way we currently consume content? Can you tell something about this?
Sure. You know, like as I was saying before, my kind of first steps into this was PlayStation Home, and I don't know if anyone remembers PlayStation Home. It was kind of an ill-fated early metaverse, but that was actually quite popular with the people that played it. It kind of built up quite a strong community. They had kind of strange real-time. You could go bowling with people, but there was only 6 bowling lanes. So you had to queue virtually to kind of go bowling. There was a kind of novelty in that, but I don't think it was what people wanted. And then we did stuff with Little Big Planet, which was one of the first games I think doesn't get enough credit for real kind of IP crossover. You know, that was one of the first games where you could have Spider-Man playing with Batman and all this kind of stuff, and I worked on a lot of the licensing for that, and it was difficult, but it was something that was done. And you know, you've seen that kind of evolve into things like Fortnite, where it is just this massive kind of mashup of people's IP, and I think that's what people are coming to expect now as well, as this kind of free space, you know, where a lot of stuff can coexist, and it's no longer just this idea of jumping between things. You want it all in one space. And I think that's, again, kind of going back to this idea of openness on games. Games are very tribal, you know. People will buy one system and want to be in that one system, and there's another system that won't talk to that system. And I think that's kind of where things have to go, is kind of dropping those walls. And it's starting now because of player demand. You know, you've seen big games start to do cross-platform, and that was an impossibility, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, whatever. People said that would never happen. You would never be able to play Rocket League on PlayStation against someone on Xbox or whatever, you know. But that's starting to happen now, and I think you're going to start to see more of that people are just going to accept it. With all the big acquisitions that are happening in games right now, they're already saying that, you know, a lot of these big projects will continue to be on both platforms. So you'll still be able to get Call of Duty on Xbox, and you'll still be able to get it on PlayStation. And I think that is, for me, like what people are going to expect, and it will come from fan demand, and you're going to start to see that being just the norm, you know, and people are going to have to kind of change the way they do business to accommodate that, because a lot of this will come from users and expectations. It's not going to come from, I'm going to call them Facebook, even though they're called Meta, but it's very confusing to call them Meta, so I'm just going to keep calling them Facebook for now. But it's not going to be because those guys have kind of waded in and said, this is what it is now, get on board. You know, it's going to come from fan expectations. Something as big as Fortnite is going to come out, and then people are going to say, that's what we want, and we don't understand your kind of archaic barriers. And that, to me, is where things like, where the metaverse will start to kind of come into itself, is this idea that everyone's going to have to talk to everyone. All the systems are going to have to talk to them, and then you're going to be able to get that kind of true barrierless gaming experience that isn't hindered by, oh, I bought this system and I kind of live in this country and I only have access to this. And I think, you know, that kind of much older sensibility of like IP, like how IPs are controlled and how systems are controlled, is going to change a lot. So I think that's going to kind of come into it. I think as well, from a gaming perspective, VR exists. It has its audience right now. I think it is really good that Facebook are stepping into that world, because it does need someone kind of outside of the games world to kind of carry that baton forward a little bit. But I don't know if it's going to, as I say before, like be the kind of be all and end all of this. So from a gaming perspective, I really just do think it's openness that people are looking for, and users don't really understand the limitations. That like hardcore gamers know this kind of stuff. Normal people don't, and they don't care. And as soon as you start putting barriers in front of people,
Maybe not normal people, soft gamers.
Exactly. People just aren't interested in hearing these kind of excuses as to why this stuff can't happen. So I think the more that kind of comes into it, the more interesting it's going to be for gamers. But I also do think gaming will continue to lead the metaverse. It's a social activity, and that is going to keep kind of driving this technology forward. And it will be gamers, like a lot of technology, that push things forward.
Yes, and linking to that and about this virtual wedding yesterday, I wanted to ask you, Mary, it's like, there was one German study published that usage of social media and video game was up at least 60% for teenagers from 2019, so that's quite a lot. And, we see this paradigm shift that virtual expression becomes a personal truth. It's like partying in Roblox, dressing your avatar. So what doesn't necessarily feel real for someone, it's like for the other having a birthday party or the wedding. It's absolutely normal, and it feels like happened in real. So what do you think? How virtual world affect individuals? How they express themselves and shape the real world identity? What's your take on this wedding as well?
That's a tough question because I think it should be a question for a psychologist or a sociologist, and none of them. But as a user...
I think, it's very important because you are designing this as well. So it's very important to think about it and maybe have this conversation as well.
I can talk as a user. First of all, I think that we are already doing it every day. We are interacting with in real life and virtual world every day when we interact with our apps and all the platforms we are using. And we come up with an ethos, which is the self-representation discourse. We create that. And I think that the blockchain, through the tool, NFT is only a tool for authentication and true ownership. It will reinforce this ethos that you are creating, and it will be shown on your wallet. And as a developer, what's really exciting is that we are trailblazing on the true cross gaming. As a developer, we are actually working with another studio we like. We have the same style of game and the same art direction. And we are creating all these assets and game mechanics with play-to-earn model that some assets or collectibles can work in both games. And that is quite new, and it's exciting because the use case is endless, and we can add more experiences, more developers to work with, and in a very stable relationship and a fair one, because it's all sharing the revenue together, and also we are sharing the revenue with the users, the players. So so I don't know if it answers the question, but I don't see any issue as a developer or as a user. But maybe psychologists would have more to say about in real life.
But I would like to ask maybe Winston then about how is it for your son? If he's spending so much time online, what is for him real to hang out with friends, to go outside to the playground, or meeting in Roblox, let's say?
Yeah, I think there's, as a parent and I guess, looking for education as gaming in the metaverse to replace traditional education, I think it's very important that we find new ways to learn, and I think the metaverse does that very well. And if we just use, there's so many definitions of metaverse. If we use like Marvel, for instance, Marvel. When I knew Marvel growing up, it was just Marvel. Then it became the Marvel universe. Then it became the multiverse. And what that really meant to me was like, okay, well, I like Spider-Man and I like Wolverine. But now all these stories are intertwined. I need to know what Iron Man is doing just to know what Spider-Man is doing. I need to know what Hulk. So it's all interrelated and making it very easy to learn about other things. I think that's what the metaverse will ultimately do in terms of whether it be NFTs or gaming or social apps or VR, AR. it'll seem easy to use, just no different than our earbuds and our iPhones and our watches, our laptops. You know, at first they were it was crazy. You know, I was trying to get my parents to use a iPhone that was like, I thought that was impossible. But now they're using, you know, they have an iWatch, they have this. So eventually it just makes it all easier. And I think for being a student or a young person, they're going to be able to navigate these, you know, various texts that come up in the next 10 years.
And, you know, because we're spending more time, labor, leisure, and then how about cybersecurity? Because we're sharing more and more data. Do you see some gaps currently? That's quite important as well.
Yeah, and I think games do a good job, like Roblox, for instance. We just heard the talk about how they police, you know, activity there, and obviously there's a lot of data that data analysts know way better than I do how to, you know, predict these, you know, bad actors, if you will, or scams. So, yeah, that's 100% very important. But also on the flip side, from a marketing standpoint, or I guess predictive buying behaviors, it's also very important, like knowing what people will want to consume, or, you know, and at the same time, the metaverse will be kind of a digital playground, if you will, to make money, to sell your creations, to sell your NFTs. Much easier than, you know, having to put it on OpenSea and whatever. People just see that you have it. And, you know, just like there are TikTok stars and Instagram stars, there'll be metaverse stars, metaverse influencers. And so I think, it definitely helps both sides of the equation, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So one more question to Aleksey, to playing the devil advocate. So how about, you know, being metaverse a responsible place? Because there is so much problems with social networks. I'm thinking about anxiety, addictions, anxiety of missing out, bullying, trolling, being Nazis, etc. So how do you see that metaverse designers are trying to change anything in this regards?
Yeah, I'll start a little bit from the far here. You know, like every new significant technology with a strong disruptive potential comes with a bunch of risks. It's just how the things are. Like, to give you an example, and people adapt to this risk by researching the technology and providing measures to counterbalance the risks, you know, like and underline the value of the technology. A good example is an AI, right? I mean, like we are it's a little bit an older of a subject currently, you know, like the metaverse, and AI is, for example, research at the institutions of existential risks, and people develop scenarios of how things might go wrong, and they're trying to avoid the scenarios, and they implement multiple measures in the process, because it's a process in the first term. You know, like I think that, well, from another angle, you know, like we, once again, are super early, and the way it will be developing infrastructurally and technically would be different than we see it now 100%. Remember, when the internet was introduced, everybody thought that it will work and function in a way where everyone will have a server in their house, you know, like, and we would go and use TCP/IP to talk to each other. It's completely different today, right? I mean, like, so the measures of mitigating those risks are different as well, because like people adapted to this, you know, like the problems that appears in the process. I think that and I would agree that the games are actually doing quite a good job, you know, like from the point of view of moderating and yada yada. And I think that the problematic here stands in openness versus regulations, and I think it will be a huge question, because I would agree here actually, you know, like that one of the questions that NFT raises currently at this point is not the question on NFT. NFT is provoking the discussion that is a long time due, because my second education is intellectual property, you know, like, and there is an old joke about it that intellectual property as a part of law haven't really changed a lot from the Queen Anne time, and has more holes than the Swiss cheese, right? And it's the fact, you know, like, and the fact of ownership in general is not connected to NFT, it's connected to questions that people had for a very long time, and then NFT as a tool provoked these questions. And now we will have to discuss it, whether you have an NFT or you don't have any NFTs around. And it's very interesting, because like another question that would be a point of conflict from my point of view is that, coming back to an example with an AI, you know, it's just how society functions, you know, like as a system, is that we're technology is disruptive, it poses the risks. Government institutions and private research institutions provides with the risk mitigation factors, and then people are implementing this from the different angles, including government regulations and UN regulations, you know, like, and I think that it will be a big question for different governments, because governments actually govern internet in a very different manner, you know, like that in the United States, in Europe, and in China, and in Russia, it's all different, right? I mean, like, and the question would be, with this dream of future potential place where real economy converge with the virtual economy, who actually controls this process? Because economy belongs to the government rents us money, we don't own them, you know, like, and if it starts to be too much converged with virtual economy, people in the offices would have questions about it. And we will see a very long discussion about it, and I think it would be very heated one. We'll end up somewhere. I mean, like, we are very good as a species, human, to actually, when we are reasonable, to find balance, you know, like, between those privileges and pluses and minuses, if we really want something and need something. And one thing I can say for sure is that Metaverse is something that provoked a lot of thoughts and desires and discussions, and that means that people kind of want it in a different ways they imagine it, you know, like, and people are known as well for the fact that if they really want something, look at the science fiction, they come up with the solutions and the things start to exist.
Thank you very much for this. And we are running out of time, so I've got one more question, and it's lunch break, I guess. So I've got 2 minutes here on my phone. I've got just, okay, then very quick. Then what are the biggest benefits that will come out from the metaverse? Can everyone say one word about this? How would you call this biggest plus of metaverse?
Oh, I get to go first. I'm wondering what's going to happen if the metaverse is going to be hardware agnostic, except you want to play and access it via your iPhone. What's going to happen with all of the platform fees? So I think more conversations around that are going to happen that I think are going to be very good for developers.
I'll go from very, once again, far away, but very quickly. I think that one of the factors that people underestimate currently at this point is that the process with the games like Playturn and the metaverse and digital economy will actually help a lot of emerging markets, you know, like, and a lot of poor countries to actually get more wealthy and balance out, you know, like, the economies around the world. And I think it's important.
Mary?
Metaverse is all about self-empowerment, individual and financial empowerment. And you should all get a wallet and buy some lands.
I've long been advocate of, as I was saying before, audience broadening, and I think that it's a very good opportunity to broaden the audience of not just gaming, but just kind of people getting involved in technology and kind of different age groups and demographics, and I think the metaverse is a good window to that more than anything that we have right now.
Yeah, real quick for me, the metaverse is really just blending reality with virtual, and there's endless opportunities of abstract art and commerce that will derive from it.
Thank you very much, everyone. I guess we could talk about it for hours, but Kelly is right here, so enjoy your lunch and no more time for questions. Thank you.